and Sir Richard Cresswell are fairly well acquainted, are you not, Mr. Ince?
Fairly well.
It's a fact, isn't it, that shortly after the war he made an application to join your firm of stockbrokers, Dimbleby and Ince.
Yes, as I recall.
Was he accepted?
No.
Why was that?
Basically, he was felt to be unsuitable.
I see. And how do you think Sir Richard views himself in terms of financial ability?
My lord, how can the witness possibly answer that question?
In view of the long-standing relationship, I think he can. You will answer.
I'm sorry. I've forgotten the question.
I asked you how Sir Richard sees his own abilities.
Well, Cresswell's someone who believes he has an instinct.
An instinct for what?
A quick return, an opening others haven't spotted.
Now, if I may, I'd like to go back for a moment to your meeting with Major Fawkes on March the 20th. You said he never told you on whose behalf that £18,500 Metalia investment was being made.
That's right.
But didn't you ever ask him?
No, I didn't.
Oh? Why not?
For the same reason I didn't try harder to dissuade him from it. You see, the thing is...
Yes?
It sounds rather stupid now, but when Fawkes first mentioned Metalia to me, I was frankly surprised. I couldn't imagine where he'd picked up the tip, you see. So I assumed the basic idea had been Richard's all along, and knowing he was the type who would follow a hunch as far as it led, I left well alone.
You assumed that the basic idea had been Sir Richard's.
Silly, really. But yes.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ince.
I call Lady Virginia Cresswell.
Lady Virginia Cresswell, please.
You are on the board of the Knowles Trust.
Yes,
Please tell us the reason for your association with the Trust.
yes. Our son...
Could you speak a little louder?
Our son suffers with epilepsy. He needs special care.
On March the 15th, 1973, were you present at the board meeting held at the Knowles School?
No, I was away for a few days then on a seminar to do with handicapped children.
Do you remember anything in particular which happened on March the 18th, 1973?
I'm sorry, March?
The 18th, while your husband was on holiday?
Yes. Major Fawkes spoke to me.
Concerning what?
He had a check from my husband that he wanted me to sign.
Why?
Well, any check on behalf of the trust had to have 2 signatures on it, and my husband and I were the only trustees with authority to sign.
Did Major Fawkes tell you the purpose of the check?
Well, he said it was made out to him for convenience, but it was actually intended for Dimbleby and Ince, the stockbrokers.
Would you tell us the ensuing conversation in your own words?
Well, he said that at the board meeting on the 15th, I think it was, it had been decided to invest...
Yes.
Some of the trust's money.
How much?
He didn't say.
Lady Cresswell, please take your time and think carefully. Did the defendant mention any particular sum?
No.
On the check he gave you, was there any amount filled in?
No.
Well, then who filled it in?
I did.
For what amount?
£20,000.
Why that amount?
Don't ask me.
Was it the defendant's idea?
No.
Well, was it yours?
It was. Yes.
My lord, there is a matter of law I should like to discuss with you, which is of no concern to the jury.
Yes, I take your meaning. Members of the jury, would you retire while this point is discussed? Miss Lewis?
I think there can be no doubt as to Lady Cresswell's attitude in examination. I would like your lordship's leave to treat her as a hostile witness.
Do you have any objection to that proposal, Mr. Harbiston?
Most definitely, my lord. It's quite obvious that the witness remembers the events in question perfectly clearly. To treat her as hostile would be, in my submission, not only unjustified, but prejudicial.
May I point out to your lordship that her present testimony runs directly opposed to her original statement?
Yes. I think I'm bound to grant the application. We'll have the jury back now, please.
Lady Cresswell, do you remember a conversation between yourself and the accused in which mention was made of a clinic in Sweden?
Yes.
When did it take place?
A week or two before he was arrested.
What did the accused say in the conversation?
He said he thought there was a chance of his daughter going to the Fredrickson Institute at Gothenburg.
Why there in particular?
But they have a unit that specializes in spinal bifida disease. That's what Eloise...
Did he tell you how this was to be paid for? Did he?
No.
Now, let us return to your meeting with the accused on March the 18th. He asked you to fill in and sign a cheque for him, is that correct?
Yes.
Did you already know the purpose of the cheque?
No.
And he told you it was to cover an investment already decided on by the board, is that correct?
Yes.
Did he tell you what the amount of the investment was to be?
Well, he...
Did you already know?
No.
Well, then who told you?
He did.
What sum, what figure, did Major Fawkes ask you to fill in the cheque for? What figure, Lady Cresswell?
£15,000.
Well, I have here your original statement made prior to committal proceedings. I quote, Major Fawkes then told me the sum for investment had been fixed at £20,000. Did you say that?
I don't know. I suppose so.
And are you now telling us it's not the truth?
Yes, you see, I was under a strain.
Lady Cresswell, I must remind you that the penalties for committing perjury are severe. You would do well to bear that in mind.
For what sum did Major Fawkes tell you to make out the cheque?
£15,000.
Then why did you make out the cheque for £20,000? It was Major Fawkes' idea, wasn't it? Well, was it yours?
Well, why shouldn't it be? His daughter deserves every penny of it. It's a scandal people like her can't find proper treatment.
I have no further questions, my lord.
Have you and your husband always been on good terms with the accused?
Yes, we had a very good relationship.
You were friends?
We were.
And do you honestly believe that he cold-bloodedly lied to you in order to obtain that £5,000?
No.
Whose idea was it? Was it yours?
Yes.
Will you tell us what really happened?
Well, it was while I was away on the seminar. I started thinking about what the Trust could do to help his daughter. The situation was so absurd, just because she hadn't been fortunate enough to have been born with epilepsy like mine. I knew perfectly well the Trust could stand another 5, so I persuaded him to accept it as our investment, with the interest to be used for the benefit of his daughter.
How did you persuade him?
Oh, it wasn't difficult. He was desperate. And I told him that I would square it with the board just as soon as my husband's holiday was over.
Why didn't you tell all this to the police? Why did you lie to them?
It's hard to explain now. But when my husband told me that Major Fawkes had confessed to the main charge, that of stealing £15,000, I lost my head. I began wondering whether all along James hadn't just been exploiting my sympathy for the situation. And I thought about what would happen if the truth about the other 5,000 became known. It could have wrecked the Trust's reputation. And with it, the lives of all those children. They were more important even than James.
Do you remember the board meeting called by your husband on April the 22nd?
Yes.
What did he tell the trustees at that meeting?
He told us that Major Fawkes had confessed to stealing £15,000.
And when was this confession supposed to have taken place?
The day before.
In whose presence?
My husband's.
And who else's?
No one's.
That night of the 21st, can you remember anything else that Sir Richard did?
Nothing special.
Well, let me help you. He got drunk, didn't he?
Well, he drank a little, that's all.
Was that unusual?
Well, no.
Did he tell you the reason?
No.
Did you ask him? Surely you asked him.
Yes, I suppose I did.
But he wouldn't tell you. Thank you.
Lady Cresswell, I suggest to you that you've told an extremely stupid lie.
The stupidest I've told in my whole life.
I'm not referring to your statement to the police. I mean your evidence today in court.
That's not a lie.
We'll see. Let's go back to your meeting with the accused on March the 18th when he asked you to sign the cheque. By the way, what time of day did this take place?
About 10 o'clock in the evening.
Oh, 10 o'clock. Where?
We were having dinner at a restaurant.
While your husband was on holiday.
Are you suggesting that there's something wrong in that, Miss Lewis?
Not wrong, my lord. No, merely unusual.
But that seems to be an odd thing to say about a woman in this day and age.
As your lordship pleases. Lady Cresswell, in your new story, the idea of investing an extra £5,000 was entirely yours.
Yes.
And you intended to square it later with the other trustees.
Yes.
When did you do that?
Well, I wanted to square it with my husband first, but he was on holiday.
So, you spoke to him on his return?
No, I'm afraid I didn't.
Why not?
It isn't easy to understand.
We'll do our best.
Well, I was frightened he'd disapprove. You see, our relationship had been going through rather a bad period.
That I can understand.
What do you mean?
Well, you appear to put your loyalty to a friend above that to your husband.
That's untrue.
Is it? Isn't your whole testimony here today a foolish lie motivated by this friendship?
No. What's the matter with your mind? Do you think it's impossible for intimacy to exist between a man and a woman unless they're married?
Oh, I'm aware it's all too possible. What concerns me is the exact degree of that intimacy.
Well, then I'll tell you. It's
Just
based...
answer the question I asked you, Lady
You've
Cresswell.
already asked a question by implication, Miss Lewis. Now let the witness answer it.
My lord.
Well, I was only going to say that in our case, it's based on the fact that we've seen suffering in both our lives. And more important, we've felt it. Perhaps you haven't.
The case of the Queen against Fawkes will be resumed tomorrow in the Crown Court.